Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Annie.
I'm the co-host Dillon.
It's great to have you back, Dillon. On this show, we rant, rave, and ramble about games that we like and sometimes games that we don't really like. So we're back again to ask, what is this game?
And what is this game indeed? I said at the beginning of Valheim. This is
Valheim.
another one that gets involved.
All right, again, we have another guest. It's our first and so far only returning guest, Alyster. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. I'm glad to be back on again for another episode.
For anyone that's new in the audience, why don't you just give a quick summary about who you are?
Oh, I am an obscure sort of artist and video game player that enjoys video games that I like.
Hey, that's about as apt as my description. I like video games and I listen to podcasts. There's not much else to me, you know.
So you
But
put them together, and here we are.
Alistair and I started playing Valheim together right after our last game, Terraria, which is where Alistair's last appearance was on the show. So we've just been kind of playing Valheim for the last month or two, or maybe even three. I checked Alistair's Steam record just before this, and they have now about 205 hours in this game, including idle time or being on the menu or not really playing, but still being on the game. So just rounding, we'll just say it's about 200 hours for a nice full casual playthrough of this game.
Oh,
Valheim
200.
is a open world survival game. You play as essentially an undead Viking raised from the dead by Odin to kind of reclaim a world that he lost a while ago because of five evil guardians or monsters or whatever their actual. I think they're called Forsaken in the game. There's five of them that live on the world of Valheim, and your goal is to kill them and make Odin happy. So, as Dillon said, he needed a guide because you just kind of get plopped in the middle of five stones, and the only hint you have is from this little bird that's like, well, why don't you go grab some stuff and figure it out?
Read this stone, you'll figure out where the boss is, but don't go there yet. You don't want to go there yet. Hang around for a little bit. And I have 2 weeks with Valheim, and in order to be able to come to this show with something to talk about, I needed a little bit of cheats. Very much like you and Alyster, I did not want to look at the guides, but with 2 weeks, I was like, shelters. You build shelters. There's so many RPG elements, and just a little. You were talking about taming animals. I still don't know how to do that. I haven't looked that up. I don't want to look that up. I want to try to figure that out myself.
Alistair, didn't you figure out how to tame animals kind of coincidentally?
Yeah, to some degree, it was like hinted towards with one of the lore stones that were across the lands. It was one in the meadows, I think specifically. It was like referring to like giving boars like some roots of the earth or something or other like that, and it was still cryptic, but like a lot of the time you look at where boars are located and it's like, okay, I see they're near certain
Wild
kinds,
berries.
yeah,
Yeah.
wild berries,
I don't
which
know how to give them to them without the boars attacking me. I got that cryptic message too. I wasn't able to fully solve it, and they charge me those boars. So I'm still in the well. I need leather scraps. I need meat. You're going down, boars.
uh
Before we
for
get too far away from the opening of the game, I do have a clip here of showing whenever you first create a character, it kind of gives you that brief summation of what is going on. And this clip also shows you being dropped in by the Valkyrie. Just have to remember how to do that. Ah, there we go. So the game's opening, you just kind of start and you are given very little hints. You have no tools. You only have a rag tunic. So the only things you can even really interact with at the beginning are the wild animals and the rocks and the sticks on the ground. So you walk around and you pick up some rocks and you pick up some sticks. And something that this game is very fortunate for, you almost immediately learn recipes. It's not like Minecraft where you have to figure out and remember how to build certain things. You have to gain the materials, and then you get a recipe, and then you just open a crafting menu, and as long as you have the materials, you just click build. And it's really
I
nice
enjoy
because
that
it kind of
very
shows you what you
much.
can build.
As soon as you get the materials, it will add the recipe. There is no extra recipe as other games make you find.
Especially with the crafting benches, it's really nice that you just open up the crafting bench and it'll show you an entire list of essentially everything that you can build. There's a bunch of different crafting benches. The game is broken down into, I believe, 4 different disciplines. It's cooking, stone cutting, metalworking, and woodworking slash just like your regular crafting table. And those 4 trees can kind of get very expansive. There's a tons of different kinds of metals. There's like 5 or 6 different kinds of wood. Then there's like enchanted items once you get way later into the game. So there's a whole lot to work with once you start learning new technologies, which is kind of directly tied to boss progress. So your first boss is Eikthyr, which is a giant deer. Uh, it's not that scary or impressive until you start fighting it. And then have you fought the first boss yet, Dylan?
Yes, I have a couple clips of the boss battle. Let's see, share this tab instead. So it warned you, make sure you don't activate this boss until you're ready. And the Eikthyr killed me my first time around. I ran out of arrows, and getting up close to him. So I got out of the game, and I was like, I'll save, and then I'll respawn the boss. But this happened instead. Just waking up,
Yeah.
ready to
That's
kill me.
for the
So
audio listener. Dylan wakes up from being killed. You wake up in your bed, like your bed is your spawn point. So he wakes up, and immediately after the screen fades from black to like color in the picture, you just immediately see the boss right in front of him. And as soon as he gets out of bed, it just shoots him with lightning and starts attacking him.
immediate, just taking me down, and killed me a few times. As I said, I ran out of arrows, and just bam, trying to shoot him, ran out of arrows. So I did have to get up close and personal with Eikthyr. With I have my axe. I don't think I even made a spear at this point.
Yep, you just swinging your little axe at it.
Eventually, after he got me a few times, I'm not good with the block timing yet. So I'm doing the roll mechanic to dodge, and that takes energy. So that killed me a few times of rolling away to dodge, and then I'm out of energy. They just come up and wallop me because I can't run away. I can't swing my weapon.
That is a recurring theme throughout the entire game. The game is you have like 3 major stats. You have your health, you have your stamina, and then way later on you have a third stat. But first you only have to juggle health and stamina. And stamina is the most important thing in the game, period. As Dylan was alluding to, you can't do almost anything without stamina. And as Alyster will attest to, we have been frustrated with stamina since the moment we started playing the game. And we even thought a couple times about getting like mods to just like patch it and fix it in. But I was too stubborn personally to be. I was like, no, come on, this is the way the game's intended. It's supposed to be hard.
Oh, stamina, my mortal enemy in this game. That is the one thing that stopped me from doing a lot of things, and also the result. It was the key factor in many deaths, really. I just like was like, man, there's got to be something that nerfs the cost of stamina, like upgrading my like sprint or my jumps or my defense, I don't know. I got fed up with this. Out of all the mechanics, stamina was the one thing that got me super fed up with it.
Stamina was like the only thing that I was actually yelling at, like audibly yelling, where I was just like, fuck you, video game. This game is so fucking bullshit. We were like DMing back and forth, and Alyster sent me a meme. It's like Stan Smith staring at the little gate, like the danger gauge on his fridge. And it's like the line right between red and orange. And it's like, I'm so good at this game. I fucking hate this game. And he's just screaming at the fridge because, it's like right on the line. I don't know which one it is. Because if you have no stamina, your jump is like only 20%. You only get 20% of your height. You can't sprint. You can't roll. You can't block effectively. You can't swing your weapon. You are completely gimped. And as Alyster said, we were so fed up with it. We like spent a couple days real time just working our world in our little like village so we could focus on just focusing on our stamina. I spent hours and hours crafting just stamina food, farming in our town, and building what is called meads, which are essentially just potions. You have food, which is where you eat and then it lasts a certain amount of time. And then you have potions or meads, which you just drink and then they have like an instant effect with a cooldown. So those are like the two categories of food. And then the biggest and most important thing, I'll argue, in the entire game is the rested bonus. The rested bonus is the most important thing. In your menu, there's a stat screen where you can see what buffs and debuffs are currently affecting you. And it took us like 60, 70 hours to finally figure out how important rested was because it gives you 200% stamina regen.
The rested, I can get to a comfort level of 4 currently. I'm like, you make your shelter nicer. I think if I throw down a deerskin rug, I now have plenty of deerskin to make a deerskin rug. I didn't want to for a while. I'm still just spearing the deer. I'm enjoying spearing them more than I am sneaking up in a spear rather than the bow and arrow. But I did notice that comfort and rested status to where I was able to be like, okay, the stamina is better when I'm rested. So I believe I've got 12 minutes uninterrupted of being rested to help boost that stamina some, and need to upgrade my shelters to get above 12 minutes.
That is absolutely vital. Once Alyster and I figured out that like the rested bonus is important, and we figured out there was a scaling level of comfort, we just did whatever we could to make that comfort level rise. We just built a small little house and we were just shoving every piece of furniture possible in it. We were putting like, what are they, tapestries on the wall. We were putting rugs on the floor. We were putting tables, chairs. We were putting torches. Way later in the game, you get a hot tub, and holy crap, that gives you 2 comfort, just flat off, just gives you 2 comfort. So once we got that, we finally got our comfort all the way up to 17. I'm sure there's a way to get it higher, but our comfort is at 17 and gives us 24 minutes of rested bonus, which sounds like a lot, but once you're out there adventuring, suddenly you just see you're no longer rested, and it's like, all right, well, the adventure's over. I'm going home.
Where's my nearest shelter? I need to sit down in front of the fire.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and there's environments that really depend on you having that rested bonus.
Oh, absolutely. The swamp is a perfect example, because if you are out of stamina in the swamp, you're going to die. Because if you fall in the water, leeches are going to kill you. You're going to die to poison. There's plenty of archers in there. And then not only that, the terrain itself is horribly mapped out. So whenever Alyster and I first got to the swamp area, we just we took a hoe, and Alyster just went and leveled basically the entire swamp, raising the ground slightly just so we weren't being slowed by the water, and then the leeches couldn't come and attack us. I think we spent probably like 12 hours collectively just leveling swamps to make our time in the swamp.
And in my 2 weeks, I have not gotten to the swamp yet. I've gotten to the Black Forest. And I do like how distinct they make each of the settings. You know when you're going into the Black Forest, and I've wandered into the mountains, but immediately I start freezing, and I don't have the clothing to equip me to stop me from freezing currently.
Yeah, that was a big stopping point for us. We found a mountain and we went up there and immediately started dying from the cold, and we're like, oh well, we can't go up there. I mean, we didn't have the potions at the time, so we couldn't do any like immediate healing, and food doesn't heal you that much over time. So let's get into food real quick. Food is one of the most vital mechanics to your survival in Valheim. You get 3 food slots, and food is balanced between 3 main stats: health, stamina, and then health regen. And then the 4th stat is how long the food item lasts. So you want to put 3 food items in each of your slots, and you can't eat 2 of the same item. So you want to use 3 food items, and if you want stamina, you want to use stamina items. If you want more health, you want to use health. Otherwise, you want to balance it out. Having good food on hand at all times is paramount to a good experience in Valheim. Anytime Alyster and I were out of food, we were miserable, complaining. We were not having a great time because you don't have any stamina. You don't have any health. You like your armor rating matters a lot, which is based on what gear you're wearing. But if you don't have the health to stand a hit, it doesn't matter if you have 100 armor. If an enemy is going to do 50 damage and you only have 50 health, you're going to die no matter how much armor you have.
My shelters, I have food stored away in what do you call it? The locker, the cabinet. Once you build those and you can leave items there, that's something I was like, okay, this regeneration point here needs food, so I can immediately not just be open to the elements and ready to be murdered in moments.
Yeah, because without food, you only have 50 HP or like 25 HP and 50 stamina. It's nothing to work with.
I've just started getting honey. I got the honey bees. That's one of the early tips. Did tip me off to that of you want to get these bees nests, and you want to, and I got 3 queen bees. So currently I've got 3 beehives making honey for me. I've so far all of my shelters have are made from something that's already been freestanding, because it's just easier. All right, this may be dilapidated, but you'll work. You're already there. All I need to do is put a little bit of a ceiling here, but not here, so the fire doesn't smother me. Because if you don't put a chimney, the fire will kill you.
That's true. You will die of smoke inhalation. The smoke will start suffocating you, and you'll do a debuff, and you'll just start taking damage over time. Uh, Fortunately, Alyster was really good at building any form of ventilation for our fires. Anytime I would personally build a fire, it would either get put out by it would suffocate itself, it would get wet or whatever. So eventually I just let Alyster take over on building on a lot of things because I was good at like coming up with the design of it. But Alyster, honestly, you do a fantastic job of building. And I just wanted to officially compliment you on that because I took a video of our village, but I tried to cut it up, and the clip software I was using wasn't letting me cut it up. So unfortunately, I don't have a full video of our village.
Oh yeah. I remember like we had like several we just I think that's like the most like useful thing is just finding abandoned structures out in the world for your own bases because it's like, well, now I can have and if you get lucky with a cluster of them, you're like, well, I could kind of designate every building for a separate thing, and eventually you kind of just may build out from that one building into something more grand.
And that's kind of what we did, right, Alistair?
Oh yeah, we found a village or an abandoned village, and we did that exact thing where we designated every building to something different as like crafting, mead brewing, cooking, and it went from just a small little rickety abandoned village to something that's more resembling as an active settlement.
Yeah, you're seeing this picture of your guys' shelter. It's looking better than mine already. There's just something very nice about the way you've put it together. Mine are currently hodgepodge. Yeah, that one from the outside, a little hodgepodge, making it work.
Oh
This was in
yeah.
the process of being upgraded to the new version of the cookhouse. So we just figured out, like we just learned the new technology, as you can see in this last picture. Um, we learned we can get a stone oven. So we learned there's like a whole new tier of food that we can cook. Unfortunately, as you can tell by the size of this oven that's sitting outside, it's quite big. So we had to completely tear down this house and rebuild it. We moved into this village initially, and there were 5 houses, and we took over the middle one here and made it our essentially our crafting house. It's where we were going to put all of our crafting stations. And Alyster went all out on every version of this house.
Yeah, I remember that rickety little shack. Because like it went from that to an actual like 2
2-story stone house, which you
yeah.
can see a little bit here on the side of this picture.
I'm having trouble with the 2-story. I started experimenting with it. I haven't quite gotten there yet of figuring out how to do that. Alistair, very natural at this, would have helped my game a lot.
Well, I'm always down for another round of Valheim.
Yeah, you were saying that, this is gonna consume, like, a bunch of your time, and I would start another playthrough right now, even with the new character. Like, there would be some frustrating things, and, we'll get into how frustrating this game can be, and, but I would absolutely start another playthrough of this game. We're personally
Absolutely. You've
rating
taken like a year of my life through introducing me to this game.
We're personally waiting on the next update. The game is developed by a small indie studio named Iron Gate. They are a under 20-man team. I didn't do enough research into the team, which I have done in previous episodes, so I apologize for that.
I heard
The team
somewhere
for Valheim
5.
is pretty.
I'm not sure if that's accurate, but yeah, it is indeed a small team, and they've done a very good job with a small team of really building up this world, kind of like an updated PS1 graphics. I enjoy the route they've taken. It's so huge, and the combat system even reminds me of PS1. I really enjoy what this small team has done.
Oh, absolutely! That is a great way to describe it. The game is very modern in a lot of its mechanics and ideas and overall like direction of the game. But the game has been specifically designed to function, feel, and look like an old style PlayStation 1 game. It's very poly looking, it's very blocky at times, it's clunky, your character isn't super well animated, but it's all part of the charm, and it also makes it easier for the developers. So it's kind of like it, it's a it's a double-edged sword, but in a good way.
A double-edged pillow, if you will.
Oh. Yeah, the graphics are something that I very well enjoy. It's like it does have like it has the low resolution textures, but like they make it work for like what they got. Like it runs fantastically. Like you could get it running on even I don't even know if like I could probably get it to run on my old laptop, which is like a Windows 7 laptop that could barely run Team Fortress 2, but I feel like I could get it to run on that.
This screenshot is from Alyster's end. They have the ability to kind of crank the settings up, whereas screenshots for me are more like lower end. You can see that there's a beautiful depth of field. There's fantastic lighting. The light hits the pond in front of them, and the light can be reflected, and you can see the tree in the distance. The game is stunningly beautiful. There's grass that is active and blows in the wind. The trees sway in the distance. The game is stunningly beautiful, but then you start playing it and you're like, huh, this game's shit until you get into it. It it's so like I said, it functions, looks, and feels like a PlayStation 1 game until you start getting into it and realize how freaking advanced it is. There's so much stuff to craft, there's so much to build. And Dillon and I have both mentioned that the building is a little clunky, a little precise. The reason so is because it uses a building block system. You get like this wall, this pillar or this pillar, this door, this door. You only get certain pieces to work with. And they all use like a snap to system. So you can snap a wall to another wall and it'll just like you can duplicate it and keep building very quickly.
That
However,
snap system is so good. For some reason, I was having difficulty with it at first, but yeah, love that snap system.
there's also a function, I think it's like shift by default, where you can change which point the snap is trying to do. So by default, it's like auto, and then you can switch it to snap bottom left, snap bottom right, snap top left, snap middle, snap left. You can change it to make it more precise whenever doing complex builds and stacking items inside of items to make them more cosmetic, which Alyster did for our wall around the community we lived in.
Oh yeah, I remember. Like I've had that's being able to toggle the snapping was something that was added in during our playthrough in a patch, which
Mhm.
that just like changed the possibilities so much that like it made building walls so much easier, especially with the stone, the big old stone bricks that you can make, and it even came in very handily for the final iteration of our crafting pavilion. Yeah, it did, because like I had so much more pieces to work with, but it was a matter of trying to make it look good.
It was also a matter of trying to figure out how big we were going to make it. Uh, in the screenshot we showed before, our original crafting house was kind of small. It was open faced, so you could just walk in, grab the crafting table, repair your stuff, build something, and then run right out. And we tried to keep that design throughout each iteration of the crafting house because it's smack dab right in the middle of our village. Um, we
Yeah,
have the crafting pavilion in the middle, and then we have our house to the side, and then we have our storage house, a cook house, and then another house which we just called the fermenter house, because there's to make the meads you need a fermenter. So the fermenter is like a big giant keg that you need to store somewhere in a building inside. And we were like, we can't store these anywhere, so we just shoved it in this other house, and we never really used that house.
made some kick and brews in there though. But like that's another thing about the crafting process, is that some crafting stations have extra parts that you make for them for to make higher tier gear, which I mean, you could probably, well, I think Annie may have a clip of like in the old crafting house that like our workstations started to get a little bit cluttered because you can't have these workstation pieces too far from the workstation.
I unfortunately don't have that clip anymore, but you're absolutely right. A perfect example is the forge, which is like the second tier of crafting that you get. Once you get metal from the Black Forest, you can start processing and smelting it, and then you can process it into like copper swords and stuff of the like. Um, the s- each of the crafting stations, as Alistair mentions, has an upgrade. So the forge has like bellows to make the coals hotter, and then it has a tool rack that you can put above it to make like to hang hammers and chisels and other things that you would need. Then there's a bucket for cooling things, and then there's an anvil, and then there's like a bigger anvil, and you can just keep putting all of these little upgrade pieces next to your station to make your station more powerful, and you can upgrade your gear to higher tiers. The problem is, as Alistair mentioned, they take up space. So if you want all this stuff in one building, you have to very cleverly start placing things. Or we just once we made our I think it was technically the fourth tier of our crafting house. We're just like, I don't care how big this building has to get. We'll move everything else in our village. This is the most important thing in our village is all of our crafting stations. I want them all in the same building, on the same floor, with storage and their upgrade stations. That's what I want. So Alyster was like, all right. So they started making like a curved wall, and I was like, it's not big enough. It's not big enough. Make it bigger. So I literally started terraforming the terrain around our house just to accommodate for this giant black marble structure.
And it like creeped up very closely to our storage house. So we're like, okay, we got to make alternative entrances. And we're like, you know what? How about we just dig out the bottom of this craft? I think the craft houses had like, or not the craft house, the chest house had the like least amount of changing to it, because before it was like, yeah, it was this it's just the same house that was there before. It just,
And then just
we
pack
had
full
a
of chests.
pack full chests, and then I'm like, let's just go a little bit deeper and just keep the rest of the structure the same aside from the walls, which we
Yep.
upgraded
So
with.
we just lowered the whole thing like, I don't know, 6 feet, and then blew out both the left and the right wall. And so now you can just kind of walk. If you see on the screen here, there's a row on the left and a row on the right. The middle chest on both rows is gone, and you can just walk straight through the chest house that way. Because whenever we made the new crafting house, it got so big that the hill that this chest house is on, the entrance was no longer able to just walk right inside of the chest house. So we had to build like a small little balcony with a staircase and then blow in separate entrances to the side just to be able to get inside of the chest house, because we didn't want to just tear it down. We tried to keep our village as original as possible. The chest house is original other than the sunken floor and the upgraded roof. The fermenter house is the original house, except it's expanded 1 block wide and 1 block high, but it's still the exact same house. And then the cookhouse, well, it was the same for a long time until we got our double ovens. And then Alyster's like, nope, I'm making it a nice stone custom house. And whew, I wish I had screenshots of that. I could get them, but no, I'm not going to do that. But it's
I haven't
essentially
gotten to those. I've got the workbench. I've got the hide tanner. Yeah, I've just got 3 things. So far, I haven't gotten too far into it. I'm still making everything out of wood. Here's one of my villages. You see, I put up a fence I have to jump over, so the gray wolves can't get me. This will eventually become my bedroom. Right now, I'm not using this house for anything. Over across the bigger structure that was there is where I have the bed, I have the fire, and
I see you have a wall going around because that's absolutely needed.
Yeah.
I've got that on all of my bases now. Here's another one of my shelters, and I found there's I believe this is the this one's facing out to sea, so all the way around. I have all the walls and this freestanding that was already there, so I just still put up some wood walls because that's all I have. And the third one that I brought as an example of my shelter, there's a big old rock there. I started with the rock, and once again, just all the way around, I have these defensive walls, and you've just got a small opening there to get into the house. Those those pikes, those walls, I learned once I think that's either in the Black Forest or right out of the Black Forest. I needed those. I was like, defense is number 1 now that I am no longer in the valley where it's pretty calm. We need to protect ourselves.
That your shelter reminds me of one that I built off a beach whenever I was training up, having an extra world to train up my skills, and it was just right off the beach, and it just like seeing those, like what you have, really reminds me of what I did make in that extra world that I wasn't very clinging to.
Where you're just only entrance, you have to come by sea. You can't just walk up. Is the strategy I took.
That
Yeah,
provides a lot of natural defense. Because enemies, they have to swim as well. So if they get in water that is deep enough, they physically have to start swimming through the water. And if you have a bow or any other kind of defense, you can easily just shoot them out of the water. They're just
And
like sitting ducks.
anytime anyone is wet, that's a mechanic I found out early as well with the comfort. Just don't walk around in the rain. The rain debuffs you so much, and it debuffs the enemies when you are wet. And you just have to wait 2 minutes until you dry off in an environment. If it's still raining, maybe we'll go to sleep. Maybe we'll craft something. If not, this is one of the few times that I'll go away from controller, because you really don't want to go away from controller on this game.
I personally just play with mouse and keyboard. That's what I play all of my games with. With the occasional indie game that requires controller, but for the most part, I just play with mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, same.
We touched on a little bit. Speaking of biomes or areas or whatever you want to call them, you start off in the meadow, and the meadow is very calm. It just has a couple of I think it only has one hostile mob. Technically, it's the Grayling. It's like a tiny little tree man made out of stone and wood, and he'll
Yeah,
run
a
around
good
and he'll
little
make
first
noise. He'll
enemy.
swing his arms. What'd you say, Dillon?
A good first enemy. They're not too tough, but they will kill you when you don't know what you're doing. As I said, especially with the blocking. I don't have the timing down on blocking at all. And I call the first section of this game Tree Puncher. Because before you have anything, you need to gain materials. Here's me just punching a tree to get materials so I can make an axe to start chopping trees down.
Yeah, at the beginning, you don't have anything. You just have to punch trees or find fallen trees. But the only other hostile thing in the meadows essentially is a boar. If you tick it off, it'll try to charge at you and it'll try to bite at you a little bit. But for the most part, the meadows are pretty safe.
And I do have a clip that leads into this. Here I am trying to get some boar meat, get some leather, and here he's running away from me, and finally take him down. Oh, shoot. I got the wrong one. Here is another example. Nope, not that one. Well,
on
the
screen there, you can see what's called a lore stone. They're scattered throughout the world. You can walk up to them and read them, and it'll give you hints about the world, such as just random bits of lore, like this guy did this thing and now he lives here, or such as, oh, hey, if you feed boars some berries, they might like you.
Here's the one I was looking for. That boar just ran away, so I'm not worried about getting hit by that boar. But I forgot there were two of them. Just his attack.
He was waiting under that ridge.
Yeah, the other one ran away, and I was one hit away as he was one hit away from me. He won the one-hit battle there. Surprise attack from... That's right, I was fighting two of them. I need to be more attentive.
I often would not call this game unfair, but I will always call it brutally punishing. If you make a single mistake, this game is ready to slap you in the face with it.
Oh, yeah.
Like Dillon wasn't paying attention to that second boar, and it just went, boop, killed him. One hit. Now he's going to have to go back and pick up his stuff and go all the way back to his tomb. Now, fortunately, this is a game where if you die, you do drop your stuff, but it drops into like a tombstone, so you can go back at any time and pick it up. This game also has a separate... Go ahead.
It's marked on the map. That's important, and you do have to mark those off. At some point, I wasn't getting rid of those markers of every time I died. So, one of the times it's like, oh, thank goodness, it tells me which day I died. Let's get rid of this day 2 death. Let's get rid of this day 4 death, this other day 4 death, this other day 4 death. Day 4 was not a good day for me.
I started clearing my deaths off like that, but one of the patches while we were playing, if I'm not mistaken, added the option of being able to toggle and hide them. So, unfortunately, I can't see where a lot of my deaths are up until like day 160 because I was just deleting them. They were getting in the way. They were covering things, so I just kept deleting them. Um, there were a couple of times where I would go to a place and die so many times that wish I still had those death markers to go see where did I die the most? What place? Because I'm pretty sure it was at this place that we named Die because it was the
Oh
first
my
time.
god.
It was the first time we encountered the new zone called the Plains, and there were new mobs in there that we hadn't seen and new plants and stuff. So and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna just journey there. And holy crap, are the things in the Plains deadly? Um, they can easily one shot you if you aren't ready. And even late into the game, even after you are ready, they can still brutalize you with little to no effort. Here's a clip of us in the Plains just playing around. Alyster is just running around, just doo, and then in the distance, suddenly, what is called a death skeeto starts chasing Alyster, and boop, one taps them.
Oh shit! I have
Instant
not come
death.
across that
I
mosquito.
was like, oh crap. So I'm like, I have to wait. I have to time my attack, and then, bam. Well, at least I avenged Alyster. But the death skeetos are absolutely not to be trifled with, and they're just
That's that
hostile to
love tap.
everything.
It's such a love tap. Like it's the Grim Reaper, just the little tap that he gave you to immediately go down.
It'll go from you to attacking just random animals that may be nearby too.
The Plains are like the definition of chaotic from mid game onwards, and it's a place you have to be in repeatedly because in the later games the Plains are connected to almost everything off of your like main continent.
I do like that the enemies don't just attack you. Getting into the Black Forest, I have this two grayling battle that I was able to take them out, and they were focusing on a skeleton. So I just picked up the skeleton's bones. That's tools that you'll use, and at that point, I had my spear. Very easy. I look like I'm having a seizure sometimes because I just tap the hell out of it, so he'll go down, and I'm still just because don't get me, you grayling. So yeah, very fortunate that the skeletons and the graylings don't like each other.
There are many different weapons to choose from, as this is kind of like a light RPG. I was also a spear user because I liked the option of being able to throw it if I needed to, even though I almost never do. And when I do, I would throw it at Alyster, and Alyster would pick it up in the middle of the fight, and I'd be running around, and I'd be like, "Can I have my spear, please? Give me my spear. I can't fight. Give me my spear." So
That's
eventually,
another thing that messed me up on the first boss fight is I accidentally threw my spear. That's right. That's why I had my axe. I accidentally threw my spear. I couldn't find it until after the boss fight was over. So I had the axe, at least something to go at this boss with. You've got the motion to just hit it or or throw the spear. And whoops, I threw it. I can't use it anymore.
So after your long journey of struggling with Eikthyr, you're basically ready to move on to the next area, which is the Black Forest. The Black Forest is a hard pivot immediately from the meadows. Like I said, the meadows only have the grayling, the only hostile mob. And then you have a boar to worry about if you piss it off, and then there's deer. There's like nothing in the meadow to worry about. It's nice, calm, and peaceful. Then as soon as you enter the Black Forest, you've got a whole new a whole new suite of gray enemies. You have gray dwarf shamans, you have gray dwarf brutes, you have gray dwarfs, graylings, then you have trolls, you have skeletons. You just suddenly have everything in the world hostile as soon as you walk into a Black Forest, and sometimes right on the border of it.
Yeah. And that's where nighttime also comes into being more hostile too.
Just go to sleep. Yeah. Nighttime. Just go to sleep. Get rested. Don't go out at night.
Like there is like a point where you can just like tough it out like you can get to a point where you could just tough it out, and it's like, oh, I could just like do a wide swing and just hit like 3 of these mobs for like 80% of their health. But that's like way later.
And
Oh,
depending on what type of weapon you're using, because there's swords, spears, bows, crossbows, hammers, clubs. Uh, feel like I'm. Then there's like the two-handed weapons. So there's a whole like army of weapons to use.
yeah, there's like special weapons, and there's like one pair that I was like, I am not letting go of this. I don't care if it puts me behind. I level it up to max.
You do
Once
have to
I
be careful in the Black Forest because it also introduces a whole new mechanic of enemy spawners.
Yeah, once I came across this grayling nest, this was just an instant death run away until I was properly leveled up. This just spawns, yeah, all the different types of grays. The shamans, the what is it? The brutes. Actually, no, the brute is huge. I haven't seen a brute spawn from this one. So this was the first one I was actually able
That's
to
a brute
come
right
up.
there, the one with the flower on his head.
Okay, that was a brute. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh,
brute just whacked me, so I've got to get away from this nest for a little bit, and there's getting whacked
oh,
again. So I'm trying. I want this nest gone. Here, while I've got some stamina up, I really should have been looking
yeah.
behind me. They're still chasing me, but so I'm gonna run away at this point. And what's really fun is right after that running away, a skeleton found me. So I was able to get rid of them. But here, I'm unable to roll because I'm out of stamina. And the skeleton
And you
got
couldn't
me.
attack either to stun him or anything, so you just just get killed right by a skeleton.
Yeah, immediately going from a nice victory over the nest. A couple of the grays went down, but I was just like, and they're afraid of fire. Most of the grays are afraid of fire, so getting out that torch will alert some enemies to you. But if they're grays, they will back off a bit. They'll be more easy to handle.
That is fantastic to know. I thought so, but honestly, I don't think Alyster and I ever tried. We like had torches and we just put them in a chest and we never used them. And then eventually, once we got the obliterator, we just started getting rid of the torches. So let's touch on that real quick. The obliterator is a craftable item. It's essentially just something. It's a trash can. It's a glorified trash can. You put items in it, you pull a handle, it gets struck by lightning by Thor, and then everything in there gets deleted. The reason you want to do that is because Valheim has a really interesting mechanic where nothing despawns ever. Ever. If you start the game today and throw your axe on the floor right at the beginning and then come back literally 100 days later in real time, that axe will still be right there and you can go pick it up, your original axe that you had there. So eventually, once you start getting all of these old gears and excess items that you don't need or just trash, essentially, you have to figure out what to do with it. Which is a mechanic I've not really had to deal with in other games before because there's just like a delete option. So initially, our strategy was just to pickaxe a hole in the floor all the way until like water level, and then anytime we need to throw stuff, we just throw it in the hole. Now, problem is, eventually all of that items on the floor are going to start generating a little bit of lag because if you're near them, all of those items are rendered and they're just sitting there physically in the world. So eventually disposing of items is an absolute necessity. So you can get an item that's called the obliterator, which solves that problem. You just put it in a trash can, pull a handle, and it gets obliterated.
Oh.
I haven't happened upon the obliterator yet.
In the Black Forest, you will eventually meet a merchant. His name is Haldor. He is what is called a diverger, which is the world's like gnome dwarfs. It's like both of them had a baby and now they're like their own species, gnome dwarfs. They are, as far as I know, the only sentient species on the planet left. According to the story, way back in the day, the Draugr, which are an enemy you meet in the swamp, they used to be the inhabitants of the world, but now they're all like dead people, and then there's skeletons, obviously. The Diverger are the only living people that are sentient and can still talk. once you meet them in the final biome, the Mistlands, most of them are non-hostile until you hit them, and then anyone in the area will just turn on you and they'll start trying to kill you. But generally speaking, they're pretty friendly.
We made a mistake with them, didn't we?
Yeah, whenever we first met them, so we were traveling throughout the world on a boat, because you start the world or you start on the world just on a continent, and the continent can be varying different sizes depending on your world generation. It can be huge. You could have 6 different biomes. Well, not 6, 6 biomes on your island, and 3 or 4 different ones depending on the world generation. You could have a swamp, you could have a mountain, you could have the Black Forest, and a meadow, all on your original continent. You could even have a plane if you get really, really lucky. The problem is eventually you're going to need to sail. The second boss is called the Elder, and it's almost guaranteed that the Elder is going to spawn on a different island than you live on, or that your world has spawned on. So eventually you have to sail, and sailing is a really fun but scary mechanic sometimes, because you don't know what's in the ocean. You don't know how far you have to go. If you run out of food or if you die, you are just, what are you gonna do? Build another boat and then go to your boat and get your old stuff back? Like, it's always a nerve-wracking process going through the ocean, because if you die, which happened to Alyster, if you die just in the ocean, you have to stop everything you're doing and figure out how to get that corpse.
Yeah.
So something we haven't touched on is the other method of travel is, after you go to the Black Forest, you eventually start getting, you find dungeons. There'll be like crypts or caves with skeletons in them. And if you go through the dungeon, you can find what's called a Surtling core. A Surtling core is like a little red cube that can be used to build various technologies. You're going to need it to build your forges, your smelters, all sorts of technology later on. Those also build portals, the most useful thing in the game. You just build like a little portal frame, and then you build another portal frame wherever you want to teleport to, and it just links on like a channel system. So you just name the portal whatever you want to name it, like home or house or crud or whatever you want to name it. And if you name the other portal on the other side they will link. You can't have 3 portals linked because it's like a 2-way channel, but you can have hundreds of portals. Alyster and I personally have how many portals do you think we have?
I think last time you counted, you said like 50 or something that is a lot, but under 100. But it's like, I think over 50.
Yeah, we have like over 50 different destinations. In our house, on the second floor of our crafting house, we have all of our food and what is called the cartography table. It's an item that is very necessary if you're playing with other people. It allows you to write an exact copy of your map to the table, and then anyone that comes in and interacts with the table can get a copy of your map, including your pins, except for your depths. All of your pins, your named locations, all discoveries, everything. You just give them a 1-to-1 copy of the map. So we have that upstairs, and then we have, initially we only had 2 portals, and then we had 3 portals, and then we just kept upgrading, and now we have a wall of 6 portals. 3 of them are permanent destinations. We have one sent to our farm, and then we have one sent to a shop, which I briefly mentioned. You'll meet a merchant. And then the last one is to the world stones. So at the beginning of the game, like I mentioned, you spawn near 5 stones that represent the 5 bosses that you have to kill. Once you kill a boss, you're going to have to take its skull or its head or whatever you want to call it and bring it back to the stone and place it on the stone. That'll give you like a superpower that you can activate, and each of the bosses give you a different power. Eikthyr gives you increased stamina regeneration and reduced stamina drain while running. The second boss lets you cut wood faster. Kind of stupid, but really useful during a period of the game once you're building up villages. It is kind of useful sometimes, but after a point, you never use it again. Then the third one is reduced damage from all physical sources. So like arrows, melee, fall damage, everything, all physical damage is reduced for the time. Then the fourth one, he gives you control of the wind, which is really useful because once you start sailing all over the place,
Sailing, yes.
yeah, so sailing, you have wind, obviously, and if it's pointing north and you need to head south, start rowing. You're going to have to put that boat into manual and literally start paddling it. And unfortunately, the game isn't advanced enough yet, so people on your boat can't help paddle. So if you were carrying 8 players on your boat, they're all just standing there while you're just paddling by yourself, one-handed.
In
But,
a
you know,
circle, because
yeah.
you're only on one side.
So, yeah, he gives you control of the wind. And then the next one, which I would argue is the hardest boss, depending on where you are in your progression, you will have to fight like a giant goblin skeleton, and he does magic. It's the first time you really experience magic in the game. And when Alyster and I faced the Goblin King, we were not ready even slightly. Not even a little bit. I think that fight took us like an hour.
I think even longer because we took like a break from it too.
Yeah, we had to take a break. We needed to eat. We were fumed out. It was just too frustrating. He had too many mechanics we didn't know how to deal with. If you got close to him and you didn't have your food ready, he would just immediately kill you. So that boss is probably the hardest if you're not overly prepared for it. That boss, whenever you kill it, it gives you the ability to reduce magic damage, which is funny because I would have used that 2 minutes ago if you would have gave it to me.
I needed that before.
And sadly, you don't really need it after that. I don't think we've ever used that buff. We've used every other one in varying circumstances, but we have not used that buff more than one time, I think, because the next zone after that, there are the Diverger, and there are mages who will do magic, but if you don't piss them off, they never attack you. So you don't need magic resistance if you don't attack the dwarves.
Yeah.
And then the last and final buff is the most underwhelming. Mining speed. You are so late into the game at this point, you don't even need metal. We've literally played 200 hours. We have chests full of extra metal.
And we have like pretty much almost every resource we would need aside from like the one that we would need to mine, but like you don't even, by the time you get that buff, you just don't really need it at all.
Whenever you finally do take the stone or the head to the stone, this is the clip of us putting it on there. You can see all the other bosses' stone or heads on their stone. We wanted to make sure that we beat the final boss before we came to record this episode. Unfortunately, it's not content complete at the moment since this game is kind of in beta or whatever you would like to call it. We killed the queen and she didn't drop anything
except a like placeholder item.
Yeah, she literally dropped like a hologram red cube, and it's just queen placeholder item.
And I owe you one skill coming in a future patch. We're only a few people. Sorry, folks.
I have to run to the bathroom, so I'm gonna throw it to you, Dillon, for just a moment, and I will be right back.
All right. Yeah, this game, I want to do another episode on Valheim next week. I've just started. I've killed 3 trolls so far, and that's one of the places where I died, where I just kept dying because I need to get all my gear back. And I'm in the Black Forest and just literally fell right on the troll's dwelling. So one shot, bam. And hours. I feel like it was like 90 minutes, 2 hours. I kept questing to go back there and get all that important gear and items that I picked up. But now I'm getting used to it. I've gotten 3 trolls down. I've got my troll armor. I don't have a troll helmet yet. I still have a leather helmet made from deer. But I imagine your armor, Alyster, and Annie's armor is way above my current troll armor. But I was very happy once I got that troll armor to upgrade from my rags and leather.
Oh yeah, like getting to that next tier of armor is always satisfying, especially if you're going for a light armor. There's like you go quite a while with just one set before you could get another set, and it's just like there was a while where I was just clinging to this one set from like the mountains, and I'm like, I love this set even though it gives me so much lower armor points than what Annie had at the current time. But like there's
Like her
some
suit of armor is putting her in slow motion, where your light armor doesn't have as much protection, but you can still roll and run and dodge much
oh
easier.
well, I
And
mean that there is my favorite armor set in the game actually does have like a speed and like melee speed bonus too, or a melee bonus too. So like yeah, I just had to be quick, just don't get hit and have a ton of stamina. It was just like playing Dark Souls all over again, where it's like, well, I can just like not level, I can just not wear any armor and just always be fast. I just got to make sure I don't take a hit. But like, armor in this game definitely looks good for the most part. I mean, there's like always I mean, the beginning armors, they're like, well, it's just the beginning armor, but like,
Very beginning, it's a rag.
yeah, it's
Leather
rag.
is very nice to get rid of your rags at first.
Oh yeah. Uh,
uh, throughout the game, we kept that kind of tradition of Alyster wearing the light armor and I would wear the heavy armor. So that way we were never really crossing upgrade paths. I wouldn't take the upgrade materials Alyster needed, and Alyster wouldn't really be using a bunch of metal. So it was a nice balance. And during fights, I would always make sure I stocked up on health foods, and I was always trying to be in the front line, absorbing as much damage as possible, always trying to have my shield ready so Alyster could run around. And once they got the mountain set armor, whew, I could never even keep up with Alyster, especially in combat. Like just zooming all over the place, which is like really good for at the time because enemies in the mountains are fast, they're mobile, there's a flying enemy, so you have to be quick on your feet. So it's really nice that the light armors have kind of set bonuses and offset the lack of direct protection that the heavier armor gives you. I wish there was a third class of armor, which there kind of is at the end of the game. Uh, the third material or the third resource you get is called Eater, which is essentially just your mana or your magic. So you can cast magic eventually way later in the game. The
yeah.
last set of light armor just gives you magic regen. The huge problem, and as Alyster has pointed out many times, and rightfully so, you start out with 50 HP, or 25 HP, 50 stamina, 0 Eater. You don't get Eater. Even in the late game, you don't have any Eater to start out with. So you can't cast a spell if you don't eat Eater food, period. So no matter what, if you're going to use magic in the late game, you have to sacrifice 1, 2, or even 3 of your food slots for the Eater items. The good Eater items still give you a good chunk of health, but they don't give you a lot of stamina. So Alyster has to now struggle between stamina, magic, and worrying about their health at the same time. Now, I don't know how Alyster does it, but in fights, they seem to live longer than I do, even though I've got 250 health and I've got 110 armor and I've got a level 3 shield, and I've got the Forsaken buff to give me like take half damage. Even with all of that stuff going on, I'm like, oh, I'm dead. And then Alistair's like, all right, don't worry, I'll just run around for a while until you get back.
Because I got
God,
so
God.
used to the mountain set, like having me run around shit. Like I was just like, another lap, up, toss a spell down, run another lap. Okay, use right there's that. There is so your magic. You don't just get like a book. You get different like staves, and they all do their own thing. So like I had like I had like three slots dedicated to one for each staff. One of them
What kind of
I
staffs are there?
so there is the Staff of Embers, which allows you to cast a big old fireball. There's the Staff of Frost, which is better than what I thought it was. It just like shoots shards of ice in a inaccurate matter. And then there is the Staff of Protection, which, or actually, there's also a fourth item. But the Staff of Protection is really good because while you sacrifice some health for something called blood magic, you get a shield that is able to take like however much damage before breaking for like 60 or 120 seconds. And you can see
Right here in the clip, you can see Alyster cast the shield. It's like a translucent blood shield that surrounds you and any of your allies, including any tamed pets you have with you, if you do have any.
yeah, I remember finding that out in our
And
farm.
in this clip is a great example of Alyster finally figuring out how deadly that frost staff is. You can see me struggling to fight the queen. I'm getting beat up. I'm not doing hardly any damage to her, even though I'm smacking the crap out of her. Alyster busts out the frost shield, and then her health bar just turns yellow.
Gone.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
like I just like fire staff. It's okay. It does a burst of fire damage that could get rid of all those little bugs. But me with I just drink an eater potion. I'm like, all right, going all out, and just start blasting with the frost staff, and it just like you just see the health bar go from like little chips to yellow, 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 yellow until I run out of eater, and it just
And
it's
then
just like
all I have to do is just kind of fluff the time until Alyster can drink another potion and just machine gun her until she dies. That boss, we were prepared for it. If we were not prepared for the queen easily would have been harder than the Goblin King. Easily. She's fast. She's super powerful. She has ranged attacks. She is able to essentially teleport with a burrow move, and she can summon tons of minions.
oh yeah, like whenever I'd run low on eater, I'd be dedicated to. I just like would run around and distract as many enemies from Annie so she can distract the queen until I can find an opportune moment to have all the minions gone, and I can do repeat the process of drinking a potion and you know just blasting her with ice again. Um, yeah.
That
Something
was a
that
hell of a character design. Like you might have saw me actually physically jump back when you brought the queen up. That is a fantastically horrid design, and she's
Oh,
vomiting on you as one of the attacks, which makes sense for a queen insect bug monster as such.
Yeah, she just drags herself on the ground with her big giant like scythe arms, and she just spits her own brood at you. She vomits little hatchlings out at you. And then anytime she screams, she calls the big ones, the fully grown ones at you. So the entire fight you have to juggle everything that you've been training up until now, you have to do in this fight at the same time. This fight, like the Goblin King took us like a whole hour because we were underprepared. We didn't know how to fight him. It was the first time we've experienced magic, so we had no resistance to it or no plan against it. So it took us like an hour, but the Queen took us 35 minutes of straight battling her. Just swinging. And I know it was 35 minutes because the buffs that you get, they last 5 minutes and they have a cooldown of 15 minutes. So it's like a 20-minute cycle for your buff. And I got to use 2 buffs and it was cooled down 5 minutes by the time the fight was over. So it took 35 minutes to do this fight.
Yeah, and that's like that comes to another thing is like I hope future updates give us more bosses because like the concept of the Forsaken is really cool that they're these grand bosses, and in every biome, well, most of the biomes you go to, you encounter these sort of mini bosses of sorts, and depending on like where it's at, it's just like depends on how tough it is, and they all have their own. They're all unique. Like
What are the
as
mini bosses?
so, I would say what one that Dylan is much familiar with at this point is the troll. That one
That's
to me,
immediately what I thought of when you mentioned that.
Mhm.
It very much feels like a little mini boss when you first come upon it, and still the level I'm at, it's not easy to take the troll down. I was calling it the ogre at first till I learned its name. It reminded me of a big blue Shrek with its club that just pounds you or smashes you into pieces.
oh yeah, and another mini boss I would say is up in the mountains. When you're looking for the next tier of resource up there, you can encounter a a pile of rocks coming to life. I will say.
Rock Eater, no, you've gone bad.
Oh, and he's even more even now he's more challenging. Like because his swings they're much different because like they're harder. They feel harder to block, and we just end up trapping them down in where we were digging up there, and we're like, well, now you're stuck. Enjoy your life in that pit because you can't navigate a slightly steep terrain. But those guys,
That mob particular is very interesting because uh, I would consider it very unique in the way that it is. The skeletons, they can have like a sword and a shield, or a bow. I guess that classifies as three different skeletons. But the golem here, it has three different arm types it can have, and each of those arm types determines what kind of attack it does. And it has two different arms. So it has like a wide combination of different golems it can spawn. You have the club arm, you have the sword arm, and you have the spear arm. So it could be a dual club golem, it could be a club spear, it could be a spear sword. So you have to be ready for these golems if they come up on you, because they're definitely going to wreck your shit. And if they don't kill you in one hit, you have to worry about being thrown off the mountain. And if you don't have a bunch of health, you're gonna go and splat on the ground, because this game does have fall damage.
The old Mario 64 first boss. Hey, get out of here.
I remember getting knocked off the mountain once. I'm like, oh, well, I'll be back soon, I guess, and splat. uh,
Something that is fortunate, though, is mobs in the game, as we've mentioned, will kind of fight each other. So not all of the enemies in the game are on the same team. Skeletons don't like Grey Dwarves. Grey Dwarves don't like trolls. Goblins don't like anybody. Death Skeetos will kill everything. So there are just various situations in the game where you will have enemies fighting each other. And sometimes you have to determine, do I want to go there and get both of the loot, or do I just want to hands off? I'm not going in there because that guy is 1 star and that Lox over there is definitely going to wreck my shit. So I'm not going to fight it.
yeah, there was like it was one of few instances in gaming where we just literally would watch a battle between two creatures that were both pains in the ass to deal with by oneself or with another person. So you're just like, okay, now that we got this other creature involved, let's watch them duel it out.
Sometimes we do get involved and go on like a crazy little adventure of like a battle royale. Here in this clip, you can see us fighting 3 Lox simultaneously. And then there's also a Grey Dwarf in the background running around distracting one of the Lox. During this fight, Alyster has the brilliant idea to jump on one of the Lox's back and pull out the pickaxe and start mining the back of this Lox. Tink, tink. And then the other Lox gets so pissed, it picks up the first Lox, and then Alyster is on top of a column of locks, Alyster with a pickaxe.
Battles do get so chaotic, and the fact that you can actually climb on top of some NPCs is funny, because there is another creature that I would consider a mini boss of its own until you learn what its weakness is. But
Are you
like,
talking about the Jajal?
yeah, that thing. Like,
In the
it's always
Mistlands, which is like the final biome of the game, there is the second flying enemy. It's called a DJAA or DJALL, a Jal. I don't know how to actually pronounce that. We just call it a drone because I don't know how to pronounce it, so we just called it a drone because we can both easily communicate and know what that is. But it's essentially just like it's like a big flying organ sac with tentacles, and it will spit a fireball at you and drop ticks on you. It is absolutely a panic-inducing threat because it'll just come out of nowhere because you're in the Mistlands, so everything around you is misty and it's hard to see. You'll just hear suddenly brum, and you'll start panicking because you'll just hear this drone start making these terrible dubstep World of the World noises, and then suddenly you'll just be hit with a fireball and knocked off of the mountain you're on and take 60 damage, and now you're suddenly in a fight and you're already at a disadvantage because you don't know where he is and he's already doing damage to you. Then he's summoning ticks that are like they're ticks. They're going to jump on you and start sucking your blood. So if you don't deal with the ticks or have your friend deal with them, it's just hell on earth.
I think there was only ever 1 or 2 opportunities where I was able to jump up onto it and start hitting it with like the pickaxe. But even then, it has a move for that. It just could just fling you off. And
yeah, we weren't prepared. We were on the top of a mountain and the drone was just at the right height, and I was like, Alyster, if you're gonna do that stupid pickaxe thing, now's the time. So Alyster's like, all right, whoop, and jumps on top of it, pulls out the pickaxe, hits it twice with the pickaxe, and then it goes, ooh, and just like spasms, and Alyster just falls like 200 feet. Just splatters instantly. Now, fortunately, as I've mentioned, we are very meticulous about our adventures. We almost never leave home without everything required to build a crafting table and a portal. We always have a portal at our house that is unnamed. So the second you place a portal, it's an unnamed portal. So an unnamed portal immediately links to an unnamed portal. And so the strategy is just pull out the hammer, drop the crafting bench, switch tabs, drop the portal. And it has saved our lives literally every time. Circling back, we mentioned that Alyster died on one of our boat journeys. We were just traveling, just sailing along, trying to go to one of the islands for whatever objective we were doing at the time. And suddenly it lags and the boat is underwater, and Alyster immediately just is bloop, out of the boat. And this didn't happen on my screen. On my screen, I'm just going at max speed. The wind is in our favor. And then all I hear is Alyster say, "What the hell?" And I'm just like, I don't know. And then I looked around for like one more second and realized Alyster wasn't on the boat, but I'm already like 300 feet away. And there was like, we've both started panicking. So there was like a lack of communication. And if you're in the water, if you're staying still, you won't lose stamina because you can just like kind of tread water. But if you move even slightly in any direction, you start losing stamina. And if you're out of stamina while in the water, you'll start taking 1 to 10 damage a second. So Alyster already had no stamina because they were running around in a circle on the boat. We go underwater. Alyster is immediately up in the water with like 5 stamina points. And before I even know what's happening, Alyster had already tried to swim to a rock and starts drowning. And I'm just like, oh God. We literally had to take a break because the game gets so frustrating at some points when you get punished like that. We had to take it like 45 minutes, calm down, and we had to come up with a strategy of how to get Alyster's corpse, because my inventory was completely full, so I couldn't just loot their stuff and put it in my inventory. The boat was already full of loot, so I couldn't just put it in the boat. So I slowly drift the boat towards shore, and I put down a portal because, like I said, we never leave without a portal. So I just drop a portal there, and I go home. And I'm like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to You're gonna go back to our house. We're gonna go to the portal. You're gonna get on the boat. Then we're gonna go paddle out towards the water. You're gonna jump out of the boat and grab your stuff out of the water. It was the most nerve-wracking point, because it was one of the only times in the game where we actually thought, oh crap, we might actually not be able to get that back.
Out in the middle of the water, just a little buoy there of loot.
Yeah.
We had so many crazy boat adventures. Alyster, besides sailing off the world, what was your favorite boat adventure we had?
Favorite boat adventure? Well, one of my favorite moments from sailing was whenever we were coming up upon the Queen's Lair, because we were like going around a landmass and we're like, all right, let's try to get as close to the lair as possible. And we get there and we find that it's a very narrow passage, and it's like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if the boat will fit. And we managed to wiggle it in there.
I think it
And
was like literally pixel perfect. The boat is like, it's clipping on the side, and as the water is just like going up and down through this little channel, I'm just narrowly squeezing through it.
SpongeBob's yelling at you, "You're good, you're good."
yeah, that was the reference we were using a lot for that.
Yep, perfect.
But I gotta say, like, just like there was like one time where I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go sail around a continent so I could get the outline of it mapped out. And I did that, and I mean, when you're sailing, you get to see neat stuff on the shore. You get to see um, creatures you've never seen before, which I think Annie is waiting for me to bring up. And that's I guess I could call that thing a mini boss, the thing you can encounter in the ocean, but under certain conditions. But
There
we
is
literally,
one more mini boss while you're on that topic of it. It's called an abomination. It's in the swamp, which Dillon hasn't seen yet. So
Nope.
the abomination, the first time we saw it, we absolutely freaked out because we had no idea, and it just comes out of the ground. It's not like a troll where it's just stomping around and you can hear it before you see it.
Yeah, we've got a
We're just
nest of trolls. They don't appear out of nothing. They
right.
but it's a nest.
But the abominations just rise straight up out of the ground and then do like a horrible like back bend as they form into formation, and then they just start charging at you immediately. We didn't know how to deal with them at first, but eventually we figured out we can just get above them and beat their AI by standing on like a indestructible building and just swinging our axe at them until they died. The enemies are this enemy is very threatening because it's fast and scary, but it's also kind of retarded. Um, in the swamp, you'll find these fire geysers, and you could just, just walk it. You just gently walk it into the fire geyser and let it kill itself. So you don't even have to fight it if you don't want to. They're not intelligent in the slightest, but if you're not prepared for them, they're definitely deadly.
Right into the fire. And there's fun animations. There was one time I was avoiding a troll, and he was right outside one of my shelters that I saw earlier, and he started scooping up water out of the lake and drinking it. I'm like, what a neat little animation to add. They've given these different enemies so much character, and it does make sense that the abomination is an idiot.
Right, it's just a bundle of sticks with no brain. This is what Alyster was talking about. That we're just sailing along the coast, and we see this destroyed village. And in one of the buildings, for the first time ever, we see like a big big green hulking monster guy that's all stinky and smelly. And we're like, what the hell is that? It turns out it was a Draugr, and this is like an abandoned Draugr village, which can spawn outside of the swamps, which is really interesting for world generation. You could be in the middle of a meadow and walk into a village that has Draugr, which is like 3 tiers later than you're ready for.
yeah, Oaksley and Bogsby, yeah. And then there's Moss Point, which was just our first like actual abandoned village that had a more complicated structure, and it was like it became our safe haven on the end of the swamp. Oh, naming town.
Going back to the boating, I just wanted to pull this up. When we were boating around the world, getting to one of our objectives, we found a dungeon on the map that we wanted to sail to. So we started sailing, and we're like, okay, we'll just go north around this continent. We made the miscalculation of thinking that this continent would end. Problem is, it didn't until almost the edge of the world. Here on the mini map, if I can't zoom in, but on the mini map in the top right, you can see how closely we go to the edge right here. Only a couple feet in front of us is the edge of the world. In Valheim, the world is unfortunately flat. So we almost fell off the world at this point, and we sailed around it, and we're like, okay, so for day 365, our like in-world anniversary, we're gonna put all of our stuff in a chest, and we're gonna build a boat, and we're gonna sail off the world. So we finally did it. We waited all the way till day 365, and we just put the boat in autopilot, put the sail at full mast, and just
if only
waited.
You could light it on fire, it would be perfect. Flaming Viking ship.
And we just fell off the world. I thought about just going with my stuff, but I'm glad I didn't, because 110% there is no way we would have ever gotten that stuff back. That is the number one way to get rid of your stuff. If you don't want it, just sail off the world.
You've got the trash can, and you've got the sailing off the world. I kind of want to send an enemy sailing off the world.
You can get enemies and other entities on the boat. When we first were starting to tame creatures, I tamed what's called a lox, and I wanted to get it from where I tamed it all the way back to our home. Problem is, there wasn't like any real way to do that, so I decided, I'm gonna try to put it on my boat. So I built like a staircase, and I had the boat right underneath the staircase, and then I rode the lox up the staircase and dropped it on the boat. And it did make it like, I don't know, like 100 feet offshore before an enemy in the water scared the lox, and then it jumped off the boat and tried to kill it.
Yeah.
The game is a perfect breeding ground for adventures. It's so good to explore and just walk around. I love just walking around and seeing things that are generated in the world and just giving them names. Like, we were walking around in the Mistlands, and I find a skeleton that has like a dead guy that has a tree growing out of his head.
Oh,
and I'm like, oh, okay, well, this guy was probably like really into plants, so I'm gonna name this corpse the Druid. And then like 50 feet west of this corpse, there's a sword, like a big ancient sword, that also has a tree growing out of it. So like, I just made up that, this is like a dead treomancer from back in the ancient days. I just like making up these stories as you go, because the game doesn't have a whole lot of story to it, because it's a dead world. So you kind of have to imagine like, oh, this was a village, and they probably used that house over there for storage because it has chests in it. And it's just nice to come up with, your own headcanons for this kind of thing.
Yeah, you've got the basics of the story, but other than that, it's an open world.
Is this that clip?
Yeah, Alyster specifically wanted me to bring in this clip because it was one of the most memorable moments of our adventure. The building in this game goes off of a stability / like gravity system. Whenever you place an item on the floor, it has like a color whenever you highlight it. It'll either be blue, green, orange, yellow, red, and then
and
if
red's
it's red,
funny. If you try to put something on red, just
it'll break because it has no stability, it's too heavy, or whatever reason the game wants to use. So you have to build supports to make sure it can hold itself up. There are various ways to increase your structural stability. You can put like stone, or you can use metal. You can put up a couple of extra wood beams. There's a bunch of different options for that specifically. There are randomly generated things in the world, though. One of the buildings that the dwarves they make is like made out of marble, and we wanted to get the marble, so we took out the base of the building, and then since it doesn't have a base, everything up in the air, it no longer has any structural stability, so it starts falling, and it just we can just cut down the whole tower by breaking just the base layer of it. Gravity will do the rest of it. So we're venturing through the Mistlands, and we come across one of these. It's called a Jotun skull. We come across a Jotun skull, and we notice that it is mostly floating. It's only kind of being held up by the jaw of the skull, and the entire back of the cranium is just floating. So we're like, I wonder if gravity affects this item. So we spend probably about 20-30 minutes mining out the stone that is connecting the jaw to the floor and trimming off any of the little stone bits that are attached to the jaw. We do it for quite a while before we get any sort of results, but I see one tiny little piece of stone that we haven't mined yet, so I climb up to break it, and the results were absolutely satisfying. Get my pickaxe ready, and boom! The entire skull breaks in like 1 second.
It looked like Thanos snapped his finger.
Yeah.
You can just see all of the hundreds, the little numbers, as all the pieces of it break simultaneously. And it just starts raining black marble everywhere.
But some things somehow manage to also defy gravity for some reason.
Like his brain.
Yeah, his brain. It just, I guess it's ascended to a higher tier of existence, so it doesn't have to obey gravity. But like but with plenty of things in the game that will just gently fall down to where you've dug out from under them, like trees and logs and some rocks. But the Jotun skulls seem to be quite unique in the fact that if you disconnect it from touching any sort of ground, it just persplodes.
Yeah, things will just fall if they don't have any structure beneath them, and if they're unbreakable, they'll just slowly fall on your head and almost fall on you. We cut a tree from the top of that mountain up there, and then we jump down, and we're in the middle of cutting it down, and it's slowly just falling this entire time. And it just happened that I walked right under it as it was about to fall on me.
Yeah, that one did scare me because I'm like,
it was a straight up jump scare. I thought it was like a new enemy type just coming down to grab me. You can just see it creeping in on my screen, and I'm just like, oh fuck, I'm getting grabbed by a giant hand.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh fuck, what new horror are we finding today? And it's like, oh, it's just a tree. Oh yeah, and that like tree stump in particularly is really funny whenever you do break it, because the collision of the tree stump just wigs out.
Yeah, the world generation is definitely not perfect. There are some things that are very questionable, like specifically with those trees, sometimes they'll generate two of them inside of one of them. So you'll cut down the first tree, and there'll literally be a copy of it in the same exact location.
I could see it when it was going back and forth, the one underneath it.
Yeah, so the Mistlands specifically has some interesting generation to it.
I'm on my third world. My first two, I hated the layout of it, and just finding boar and deer for some reason. They didn't seem to be very populated. Let's see, the first one was Hellscape, then Dudleyville, and I'm now in Bumfuck. Bumfuck has been much better to me than Hellscape or Dudleyville.
Oh, you named your cities? I think the entire time we played, we never named our settlement.
Yeah,
the world. I haven't named the city, but like the world when you first generate it.
Alyster, what is the name of the world that you picked for us?
Any CPU temp. Because it's funny to me.
At the beginning, whenever we first started playing, I was worried that we weren't going to be able to play because I kept crashing. I kept having issues. But finally, I tuned the graphics to the right settings and I clocked my card properly to run the game. But the first bit, anytime I would just log into the game, I just see see and then just dot 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 dot, and I know what the name is, and I just know every time I go to the world, it's just making fun of my shitty computer.
Yeah, and as I said, I've been playing on console, so I'm very happy it came to the Game Pass for Xbox. I've only got the Switch, but my roommate very much into the new generation gaming. PC I haven't messed with yet. Very glad to have this playable beta. Are they calling it? It's a hell of a beta.
Yeah, I think it's officially early access or whatever it's called on Steam. Each of the platforms has their own like thing. So I guess the best descriptor would be open beta. It's just currently an open beta. They are working on the update for the Ashlands and also finishing the content for the Queen. Once we killed the Queen, she dropped us an item, but it has no purpose in the game currently. So we are officially, for all intents and purposes, in the end game. We can't really progress any further. We have tons of projects we can do. We can build things, we can explore, we can, do all of this.
And start over again. I've got currently on Blunt, I've got Torget and Turd. He's named Turd because he was my third character. He's the most underleveled.
My first character was just named Crud, the Barbarian.
I think I only ever stuck with the one character because, like, something I think we may have missed out on talking about was talking about the death penalty. Like,
ooh, yeah. Why don't you bring that up real quick?
So, whenever we started first playing this game, the game has this punishing mechanic to where if you die, your skills get reduced by some amount. Don't know how much because I never actually kept super track of it, but like you kind of notice how bad it is when you start going from, oh, I have 40 run now, and then you die several times, and then you level up and you run again, and it's like, yeah, I got run level 13. Oh, great.
Yeah.
And
13 again.
It's like really like demoralizing to see that like
your skills have been drained whenever you die, especially to some stupid bullshit. Like you have just 5 HP left and you haven't eaten yet, and you just jump from the second floor to the first floor and you take 6 amount of fall damage and you die. And now you just lost the last like half hour of your XP gains from your running and all of this crap. So it can, like Alyster said, it can be really demoralizing because there is a skill for like almost everything. You have run, you have jump, you have swim, you have swords, you have hammer, axes. You have skills for everything.
Yeah, every
you can
single
do,
thing.
Basically.
It's fun. The very first time you hit jump, all right, you leveled up. You jumped once. Congrats.
Yeah. You start a new character and the tutorial bird pops up and you punch it in the face and fist won.
But like then there was an update that came out in which you could toggle world modifiers.
Yep.
It allowed you to toggle like certain things, and I'm just like, I just have to do it. I decided to lower our world's death penalty because we were getting pretty late into the game, and then we were still having our skills reduced down to like the
20.
10s.
Yeah, 10s and 20s. Like, I only had one skill that was even close to level 50 by the end of the time we were playing, because the death penalty can be really punishing, especially if you are dying slowly. Because when you die, you get like a death protection thing. So if you die again in the next like 5 minutes, you don't lose your skills. So it's kind of like a forgiveness, kind of like a little handicap. So you only lose a certain amount. But if you're dying every 7 or 8 minutes, you're gonna lose your skills every single time because you no longer have that little death protection thing. So any mistake, you just now I can't jump as high. I remember the jump being specifically important because as we're running around in the swamp, there are these little like dungeons, and as I mentioned, the abominations. If you stand on top of the little dungeon, the abomination can't hit you, and you can just kill it for free. In the middle of a fight, I don't often have time to pull out my hammer, find a ladder or a little staircase, and build a staircase up to the little dungeon, climb the staircase, and then destroy the staircase. So Alyster is running with like 19 or 20 jump and just goes whoop right up on top of the dungeon, just like Mario, just one hop. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I can't get up there. And I just ended up having to train my jump up because I wasn't going to just be left behind because of my lack of skill.
But yeah, the world modifier is really just, while it was kind of late getting to us, just like lowering that death penalty just like really helped us later on. It felt like, because now I forget the last skill that leveled up, but it's now at 59, and I'm like, that's
Probably
nice.
run.
Yeah, probably run. We do so much of it.
Well, it's about time to start wrapping up. So let's give some final thoughts about the game. Dillon, you mentioned you're going to continue playing the game. So are there anything that you want to bring up or any clips you want to show before we wrap?
We got to all the clips that I had, and I do like starting from zero. Sometimes I will start the tree puncher game and then slowly work my way up into actual Valheim. I'm looking forward. I don't want to cheat to figure out how to domesticate animals. I know somewhat how to domesticate these animals, and I can't wait till I put the two and two together and I feel clever because of it.
What about you, Alyster? Do you have any final thoughts or notes for the game other than just waiting for the next update?
Well, I mean, this game, I'd always play with my own personal, difficulty settings
Mhm.
as they are now. And playing from zero to where we are now, I would probably do it again. In fact, I would probably use the things that the knowledge that I have now to see if I can find a way to do a sort of speedrunners thing and try to break the game to get certain things earlier than I should, kind of like how we discovered Black Marble. And I'd probably use that for my next major playthrough. And I just look forward to having more stuff to fight with new methods of fighting it. Saying that I would definitely pick up this game just like I did Terraria once more.
Yep. If anyone asked me, it's like, hey, you want to do like a full run of Valheim? I'd be like, yeah. Do you have a couple weeks? Sure. The game is fantastic, and if anyone likes just casual open world survival that gives you a brutalizing challenge, you should pick up Valheim. It's usually pretty cheap, and it has a really good development cycle. It has patches like every 2 weeks. They address things all the time. You can give them feedback on the subreddit, or you can go to their Discord, and it's a very great community for that kind of thing. And there's plenty of servers to play if you don't want to play alone. So it's always a good time doing this kind of thing with people, because dying on your own can be really panicking if you don't have someone to set up a portal.
That'll be brand new to me. So far, I've just been doing it solo as I'm slowly making my way through. So, that'll be a whole new experience teaming up like you guys have.
My closing thought is I wish the game didn't have some of the mechanics that it did, but I understand why. A specific one that we literally did cheat repeatedly throughout the game is metal cannot be teleported through a portal. So if you're on the
already
other side
frustrated.
of the planet and you discover a new material and you can't teleport it back, you only have two choices. Sail it all the way back, walk it all the way back, whichever one, or leave it there. So I honestly just cheated. What I did is I opened a personal world where I could just log in and put stuff in a chest, and then log back into Alyster and I's world, go through the portal, and then your character is saved the location when you log out. So I would just go through the portal to the other side, log into my chest world, grab the metal out of the chest, and then when I log back in, I would already be through the portal, and I would skip the actual portal part while the metal is in my inventory. And we repeatedly use this method because if you're only crafting like one or two things, it's not that big of a deal to carry a lot of metal. But metal is so heavy, specifically silver, that it would have taken us probably an additional 100 hours just to transport metal.
Yeah, and I mean they do give you wagons to use, but like I honestly think their intended game design is to have us build a on the spot base to smelt these metals in. Like I think the intention is to have like a base on like in every area you're going to be spending a ton of time in.
Yeah, that
Or
seems to be what Dillon was doing, is just building a base everywhere he goes, which is probably the intended thing. Because
That's
you're absolutely right, Alyster. Whenever you're in the Mistland, it is a perfect example of they are encouraging you to do it, because you can get Surtling cores from the Mistlands, which is what you need to build a smelter. You can find various old metal throughout the Mistlands, which will drop you copper and steel, which you need to craft the crafting stations to build the stuff that you need to build. So the whole point is to build things as you go, but I couldn't personally justify giving up that much of my time for a trivial game mechanic. The fact that I couldn't just teleport metal was just, I was like, nah, fuck this. So anytime we had to transport bulks of metal, I would just dump it into a different dimension, go through the portal, and then pull it out of that dimension.
yeah, which we did have that one issue where the game did like delete my character temporarily. But
yeah, the game save bugged for you, and you temporarily, your character was gone, and you had to roll back a save. Fortunately, because of how often the game saves, we only lost about 30 minutes of progress, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But it was really frustrating at the time. So I totally understand what you mean.
yeah, I look forward to this game even more.
All right. On that note, we're gonna wrap up. Dillon, do you want to plug anything? Where can people find you?
Thank you for having that scroll already. Dillon from somewhere. I am doing something 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, most days at 11:30 a.m. Friday, Annie and I are two nerds without dates, talking about Futurama, talking about Qbert episodes this coming Friday, aka first thing Saturday morning at midnight Eastern time, talking about Qbert Futurama episodes.
All right. And Alyster, is there anything you would like to plug or promote?
Well, I don't really have any social media accounts that I'm currently active on, so I am just kind of privately findable, I guess.
All
Through
right. That's totally understandable. All right. I wanted to thank the audience for joining us this week. I know we had some live viewers, so thank you for them for showing up. And as always, we will be back not next week, the week after, to talk about another game. We'll be having Mondays weekly on to talk about Dead Space. Until then, I'll see you next time.